I saw someone post on Facebook this morning that there's more to success than making money, and they put some smiley faces. So I wanted to address that point briefly. If there is more to success than making money, then what more is there? Because don't we live in a world that is basically ruled by money? When you drive to work in the morning and you look at all the other people, what are they doing? Why are they driving in their cars? Is it because of some reason other than money? If you don't have money, can you be successful? Can you say that you're successful? If you don't make a lot of money? How do you measure your success? Is success something that you're defining according to how you feel? Because if so, and you're honest with yourself, you would admit that your feelings change from moment to moment. So if you're defining success according to feeling really great all the time, you'll never get that because you can't feel good all the time. You can't feel good all the time in a world where the relationships that exist between every part of our reality are not best for everyone involved. There will always be some kind of negative consequence, and that will eventually come back to you. And if you don't believe me, just ask yourself, what happens at the end of your life? You die. So you can't possibly feel good all the time. And it doesn't really matter what you believe about what happens when you die, because you don't know. You really don't know for sure. You don't know when you die whether you're going to go to some happy place or some sad place or some no place. You really don't know what's going to happen. All we can really talk about is what's happening in this world, in this life. And the fact is that your success, first of all, is a word that you are defining. So the question is, what does success mean to you? And why would you define success a certain way? If you did not grow up in an environment where you had an effective education, and therefore you developed an effective vocabulary for making money, then of course you're not going to define success according to making money, because you don't feel adequate in terms of how to make money. So what I notice is many people, we will define success according to what we think we can get, but it's actually just limited because our vocabularies are limited, our education is limited, and we are then defining success in a way that will allow us to feel better about the situation that we're in, instead of in a way that supports us to move beyond the situation that we're in and to do more with our lives. And I don't see how you can practically possibly define success as anything less than doing the very best that you possibly can. And doing the best that you possibly can has to include doing what's best for everyone, because everything is interrelated. So if you do anything that's less than best for everything in reality and every other part, then you're going to limit what you're doing, and that's not best. You're going to create negative consequences at some level within how you're participating in your life. So the statement that there's more to success than just making money, practically in the reality we live in right now, is total bullshit. And that's coming from a mindset of not being effective at making money. When I say effective, I mean making millions, hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars. Because if you're not making hundreds of millions of dollars, you're not yet having a physical impact in reality, more than likely. I mean, unless you're a politician. But then if you're a politician, how did you get into that office? Typically, you have to spend hundreds of millions, and at the local levels, millions of dollars. So if you're some kind of spiritual leader, well, if you're not reaching people, then you're not having an impact. And so when you look at somebody like Joel Osteen here in Houston, the guy reaches a lot of people. Now, whether he tells people what's best for all and actually supports everyone accordingly is not the point. The point is he makes a lot of money because he reaches a lot of people. And so it's real easy for us to sit back and say, well, happiness is more than making money. Yeah, because you're defining your happiness in terms of your own self-interest and not in terms of any measurable standard. So if you were to define happiness equals making money, then what you could do is take your happiness and add the measurability aspect. Because I would suggest that the best definition of happiness is having an impact in this world in every moment that you possibly can that is best for everybody. And when I say possibly can, I mean there's a lot of programs and things that we do automatically through habit because of our education and our upbringing that cause us to act in ways that are not best. So does it take time to go through all of that and find the ways in which we're not acting in ways that are best and stop that and change? Yes. Practically speaking, yes. It takes time to do that. It takes a process to do that. But that doesn't mean in a moment you can't stop and reevaluate what you're doing in that moment. And so the whole attitude of not making money is really just an acceptance of limitation. Because if you're not making money, or you're not doing something that requires a lot of money, then you're not really doing anything that's making any kind of difference in this world. And again, if you would define your happiness equals making money, then you bring in the measurability, the accountability factor into what you're doing. And therefore your happiness can be a reflection upon the value and the difference that you're making in the world in a way that's best for everybody, instead of just your own self-interest. Because that type of happiness, which is based on just a feeling, it's momentary, doesn't last, and ultimately you can't save it up and you can't accumulate it, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be happy in the next moment. It's just a temporary experience. And yes, you can accumulate memories within yourself, but those memories you can't take with you when you die, regardless of what you think happens when you die, because your memories are stored physically in your body. They're a product of your body. That's how we store memories. So you can't take those when you die, regardless of whether you exist, don't exist after you die, whatever. Your body decomposes and goes back into the earth. You cannot take those things with you. So anything that you're doing in this reality that's totally for yourself only, in terms of an experience within yourself, is not going to last. You can't take it with you. So unless you're doing something that has a measurable physical impact in this reality that changes things in a way as a consequence that can't be reversed, and in a way that is actually best for everybody, well, then you're actually doing something that matters. And an easy way, or a simple way to measure that, is based on how much money you're making. Because that doesn't mean just because you make money that you're having an impact that's best for everybody. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, not holding yourself accountable by making money and measuring it in some way, a tangible way like that, is basically not actually supporting yourself to do anything that matters. And I don't really see how anyone could be happy in that type of situation, because it's just fooling yourself. It's easy to convince yourself, but it will eventually come back to you, because something will happen in your reality that will contradict your belief, and then you'll crash because you won't have any physical support or any physical structure that you've created that will support you through that crash. So it's a very dangerous game to play. It's very dangerous to convince yourself of things that aren't true because you want them to be true, which is wishful thinking, instead of looking at the practical reality that we live in and realize that we live in a world and a system that is based on money, and that is based on profit, and that is based on physical movement and expression equals money. Free speech equals you have money. It's not free. You can't have free speech without money, because even what I'm doing right now requires a platform like Facebook, which took who knows how much money to build, and it required the invention of cell phones, and it required the invention of digital communication technology, etc. So the idea that we just have freedom of expression just naturally is not true, because it requires physical systems to exist to be able to express yourself. If you didn't have vocal cords, you couldn't express yourself. Vocal cords aren't free. They cost money. Your parents had to feed you as a baby and help you develop into a human being, an adult, or into an adolescent or a teenager that you could then develop on your own after that point. So the idea that money is kind of irrelevant in the equation of happiness, or that happiness is more than that, is total bullshit, because that's not how the world works right now. It's wishful thinking. That doesn't mean we can't create a system where the money system is different and where happiness can be much more than making money. But at the moment, that's not the way it works. And so the point here to consider is that until we get to a point where we've changed the monetary system so that everyone has what they need as a guaranteed human right, then it's really self-interested and rather naive to talk about happiness beyond making money. Because again, how are you measuring it? And I know that the one comment will be, who are you to decide what makes me happy? You don't have that right. Yes, I do. Because it's common sense. It's rationality. It's reason to see how happiness works. We're all human. I can see what makes another person happy because I can see what would make me happy. And we're all the same. The only thing that's different between us is our opinions and biases based on different environments and different vocabularies. But that's very predictable as well. You can predict what a person is interested in or what their opinions will be just based on knowing their vocabulary and listening to a few words that they speak. You can actually predict everything about what they're going to think and believe, because it's all within the words that they know and within the environment that they grew up in, which forms the entire basis of all of their opinions. So it's all very predictable. Your uniqueness as a human being is not in your opinions and your beliefs. You're not as unique as you think you are. And so your opinion about what makes you happy is actually just something you've convinced yourself of over time, and it's not real, which is why you keep having to chase it, which is why you keep thinking that it's something that you need to get. But it's not. Happiness is not something you can achieve. Happiness is simply the result of something. Happiness is simply the condition that exists when everyone has what they need and is giving what they want to receive, and receiving as an equality equation, as an equal expression of giving and receiving. That's what happiness is. It's the state of giving and receiving equally. And it's the state of having all of your needs fulfilled. That's what happiness is. And so you can't really argue with the fact that you don't need money to have your needs fulfilled in this world. How can you be happy without that? Think about it. Again, that doesn't mean that you have to be a entrepreneur to be happy. But what is your happiness based on? Is it just based on a feeling? Or is it based on what you're actually creating in this world? What's the impact you're having? And maybe the impact you have in this world is simply to evolve into a better human being who is not self-interested. So it doesn't mean per se that you need to go out and make $100 million and that's how you can actually make a difference in the world. It could simply be that you, within your life, become a human being that is reasonable and has common sense. But how are you going to do that without money? Money would form the basis of your ability to have the freedom of time to be able to do that. Because with the pressures and stresses of not having enough money, you really can't focus on anything other than just trying to get more money. So for those people who don't have the skills and capabilities and are not in an environment where they have the ability to develop that, those people are kind of screwed right now, because the money system is such that it just keeps them in a slavery position where they really have no time or freedom to think for themselves or to consider things beyond just basically working all day. And life becomes a balance between working for money and relaxing and relieving stress that we've accumulated from work, which is why we have holidays and so forth. But even the holidays that we have, which are designed from our perspective to help us relieve stress and relax, cost money. So we just work our whole lives so that we can have the money to go relax from having to do the work that we didn't want to do in the first place. Man, can you imagine a world where we didn't have to do all of that, and yet where our needs were still taken care of? I bet you that's hard for you to imagine because of a limited vocabulary. But if you want to imagine it, let me know. Because it's simply a matter of developing a more effective vocabulary and developing some common sense so that you can see what's possible in this world. Otherwise, we're all screwed, because we're just going to keep repeating the same cycles that have existed for however long. And as you go about your day, ask yourself, is this ever going to change? Is this world ever going to change at all, in any way whatsoever? Or is it just going to either continue to be exactly the same, or just get worse and worse and worse because of the accumulation of negative consequences due to the fact that the relationships between all parts of existence are not effective, and they're not best for everybody involved? And so we just continue to accumulate negative consequences under the surface until we get to a point where, you can't take it anymore, and then something explodes, or something goes wrong, or somebody reacts, and somebody gets filled with rage and does something that they regret. That seems to be the kind of MO of this entire existence. So there's some points to consider. Is your happiness defined by how you feel, or is your happiness defined by the impact you have in this world in a way that's best for everybody? Imagine if every single moment of your life, every breath you took, you were acting in a way that was in the best interest of yourself and everyone else. Or at the very least, it was not acting in a way that was harming anything else in existence, including yourself. So it doesn't mean you have to be positively doing something, but it could be just simply refraining from doing something in a moment that would actually be harmful to other people or yourself. Imagine if everyone were doing that, the kind of reality that we would have. It would be a totally different reality, completely different reality. But it is possible. It's just difficult to imagine, because we look around at the world and we see everybody acting totally in self-interest, based on fear of survival. But that's because, as human beings, as children, we are totally innocent and totally naive, and we don't know how to make choices. And so we look at the examples in front of us as the adults and see the choices they're making. Then we absorb the understanding of choice based on choosing always what's in our best interest, what's in our self-interest, in terms of our survival and in terms of the survival of the system, actually subordinating our actual real self-interest simply to the self-interest of the system itself, so that it continues. And yet the system itself never actually creates an environment where anybody is genuinely happy, even those with lots of money in this world. So even if you do make lots of money, hear me, it's what you do with it that matters, not the fact that you have the money. So can you be happy truly without making money? No. But does money itself mean you're going to be happy? No. You have to do what's best. And in the world right now, the only thing that's really ruling everything is the money system. So let's focus on changing that. Let's focus on getting into positions where we can make a positive difference within that situation in a way that's according to the laws, by becoming politicians, by becoming lawyers, by becoming psychologists. Psychologists are necessary, but ones who actually understand how the mind really works, and not just based on the textbooks that are completely limited in their understanding and are just based on research that is created by corporations to increase their profits. So there's a lot of fucked up bullshit going on that is limiting a lot of really important areas. Health is another one that's completely limited by the profit motive system. But again, we can't just react like I see some people doing and saying, well, I'm just not going to participate in that. Well, that's not going to change it, because then that just means people are going to starve. Because if you're in a country like, Zimbabwe or something like that, you don't have the luxury of just not participating in the system, because all those fake-ass protesters who act like they're not going to participate in the system are still using money. You're still using money. You're just using money to buy things that reinforce your image of yourself as a protester or as a non-participant or a survivalist or whatever it is. It's still just self-interest. It's not an actual solution. So consider these points today. Leave me some feedback. Share the video if you feel like it was supportive, or if you see that it was supportive, rather. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.